All right, welcome back. So, a few moments ago, we were talking with the practicing attorney, Cassandra. Now I'm here with the practicing accountant, Dale Blanchard, who is also very enterprising himself in the areas. What's going on, Dale?
How you doing, Anthony?
I'm all right, and you. So now, let's go back. Let's just share with some folks. It's been a while since you've been on the show, and let's just kind of go back and just remind people who you are and what you do. And let's talk about growing up in Cleveland. And I'm not going to tell the whole story. I know we're going to just say that you went to Cleveland schools and you went to Catholic schools for a little while. You tried to get on me about going to Warrensville, but that's okay. But let's talk about John Adams. What was it like?
Well, Rebels forever. It was a fun school. It was fun growing up there. And actually, when we moved into the neighborhood, the Mount Pleasant neighborhood, I thought that we had hit big time
Wow.
because we came from. I mean, my mom and I we had moved in.
Thought you were like the Jeffersons. Y'all had moved up.
We had because we had left the projects in Garden Valley, so things were looking up.
Side note, real quick, have you been back to see the new John Adams High School?
Yes, I was there at the opening.
Oh, okay then, cool. All right, so now during high school, what did Dale do? Because I mean, you're an accountant now. I mean, were you good at numbers then? Was it math your strong subject?
Math was my favorite subject, and I did very well in it. And but I was just an average student. Tried to play basketball, and I did run track. They did allow me to run on the track team, so we had a good time. We had a good track team too.
He said he tried to play basketball. Okay, I'm sorry. That was funny. All right. So now, from John Adams High School, you end up going to Cleveland State University.
That's correct.
So let's talk about your experience there.
Well, it was great. I went straight through. I didn't study as hard as I perhaps should have, but I didn't know any better. But I was able to get through in 4 years and came out of school with no debt.
Wow. Now, is that all because of how you knew how to balance and finance your money properly, or just knew how to take care of business, to be a good steward? I mean, because I know a lot of students can't say that.
Yeah, that had a lot to do with it. Me and my mom, we kind of went 50-50 on the tuition. I worked during the summers to, finance my half of it.
Wonderful. So now, let's get to the meat and the heart of it all. Now, you came on before and you shared with us some aspirations of making a difference in our community. Where is that passion still lie today?
Well, I want to see the American economy grow, and that's the reason why I always run for Congress. I think we need people in Washington who are dedicated to growing the economy, who aren't just going to play political games, but who are actually going to propose and support legislation that's actually going to help this economy grow. And if the economy grows faster, then everybody's standard of living will increase.
So right now, you are currently seeking the position of the 14th Congressional District Congress. Now, share with our viewing audience, what area does that cover?
The 14th Congressional District covers all of Geauga, Lake, and Ashtabula counties, and then the eastern and southern portion of Cuyahoga County, northern portion of Summit County, and the northern portions of both Trumbull and Portage County.
So that's a pretty big region that position covers. And how and what are some of your thoughts? I know you have about 8 major points that you're trying to cover during your term. If you're once elected, I'm going to speak in the affirmative. Once elected.
Well, the number one thing is to grow the economy. And to grow the economy, you have to be able to diagnose exactly what's wrong with the economy at the particular time. Now, right now, we're trying to pull out of this recession, and the economy is growing, but not fast enough to get us back to full employment or an employment level that would be satisfying. So, and the problem with the economy right now is not that the government spends too much or spends too little, and it's not that the government taxes too much or taxes too little. The problem is that the American consumer just isn't spending. And there are a lot of reasons for that. A lot of folks are out of work. A lot of people who are working part-time. They would like to be working full-time. A lot of folks are working in jobs well beneath their capacities. Those people who have not been adversely affected by the economic downturn are a little concerned that they may lose their jobs. And so they're not spending as much as they potentially could. And people have seen the value of their homes go down in value, so they don't feel as rich. So to offset that, the first thing I want to do when I get to Washington is propose legislation that will cut taxes by 5% for a 5-year period on the first $150,000 of income for individuals and the first $300,000 for married couples. So in that way, we'll put more money in the pockets of the American people, and this will increase aggregate demand for goods and services, encouraging businesses to increase their hiring. In addition to that, I also propose a number of tax cuts for businesses to provide them incentives to increase their employment. And when they do so, when you make the quote-unquote job creators, then reward them with tax cuts. Everything, though, in my plan will have to do with this: creating jobs, putting people back to work, and getting people, the American consumer, back into the business of providing strong markets for businesses and just growing this economy.
Here's a question for you. I'm just curious. Just looking at, I'm spinning off real quick. I'm going off script. Watch this now. Watching and listening to Ed Fitzgerald, our county executive, and he's a lot talking about regionalism and collaborations between communities and between counties and things of that nature. Where do you see that may fit in your plan?
Well, with all due respect to local politicians, almost every city and every state has been adversely affected by the national downturn in the economy. So the real heavy lifting is going to be done at the federal level. One of the things that we've got to do is to try to stimulate the economy at the national level. That combines implementing smart monetary policy, which the Federal Reserve Board has been implementing by lowering interest rates. But now they also want individuals, businesses, and the government to increase spending. That's why interest rates are so low. So what I want to do is have the federal government act as a catalyst. Interest rates are low. Usually deficits are bad for the economy because when the federal government runs deficits, it has to borrow money and it crowds out other interested parties like businesses and individuals from borrowing money. But right now, because we're so far into capacity, the federal government can borrow over $1 trillion a year, which is done over the past 4 years, and not crowd out anybody. So we've got to implement policies to allow the federal government to be that catalyst to begin to grow the economy. And then what you'll find is that no matter what type of regional government you have, you're going to have a strong economy.
So now, I'm looking at your website. I remember you saying something on your website about your goal is to try to be everyone's friend, but not everyone's buddy. And you gave a definition. Why is that? And I'm going to first ask you explain that, and I'm going to go to my next question.
Oh, that was written a long time ago. Well, a good friend of mine once told me the difference between a friend and a buddy. A buddy is a person who's going to tell you things that you want to hear, but a friend will tell you things that you need to hear. So a lot of times I'll have policies that some people will kind of scratch their head about, and they may not think that that's necessarily a good idea at the time. But in the long run, it is what's going to be needed. Like I'm talking about cutting taxes right now. Well, there's a cost to that. It does increase the deficit. That's not a good thing. But in the short term, it's a very good thing because we've got to get our economy up and going. Eventually, though, once the economy is up and going, we are going to have to raise taxes in order to eliminate our structural deficit, which will, in the long run, hurt our long-term economic growth.
So my final question would be, when you get to D.C. and you start to make these friendships, and I know sometimes you have these big businesses and corporations who are knocking on politicians' doors trying to make things happen in their community, how will you be able to discern how to figure out who's really for you and what you believe in, those just trying to come in, trying to make a quick buck for themselves and not really benefit the community?
Well, the main thing is just to be focused on the goal, which is to try to improve the standard of living of all Americans, and you can sort of discern who has the interest of all Americans or who are just looking at their own self-interest.
I thought about that question because I remember watching a movie called The Campaign about two guys running for political office, going to D.C., and they really had some issues. Nonetheless, I digress. Someone wants to get involved. They want to volunteer. They want to call. They want to go campaign. They want to. I live out in Summit County. I live in Trumbull County. I want to put a sign up. I want to do whatever I can. How do they reach you?
Okay, first of all, my website is Dale Blanchard for Congress. Dale Blanchard for Congress. I'll say it one more time, Dale Blanchard for Congress. And my telephone number, if you want to reach me, is area code 216-978 0237.
Wow. Okay. Well, so, ladies and gentlemen, Dale Blanchard for Congress. This is the seat that was once held by Steve LaTourette.
It's currently held by him, and he's going to step down now.
Okay.
One of the things about that is he's a Republican, and he just got so frustrated with these Tea Party Republicans who just are not governing.
Okay.
They're making it impossible to govern, and they're just playing too many ideological games.
So he's bowing out.
He's bowing out, and my main thing is I do have a new
It's a great time for some new politics.
right. And besides growing the economy, I also want to fight against a lot of these Republican right-wing positions that, like the Ryan budget, which is really bad for Americans, particularly people in the bottom 98%. They want to cut taxes for millionaires and billionaires and raise taxes on the rest of us. And I don't think that average American really wants that.
Well, you heard it here first, or however you heard it here, right here on our show. Another look. Dale Blanchard for Congress, 14th Congressional District. Go out again. Like I said earlier with Cassandra, it's important that you go out and vote. If you know people in your family, get them to the polls when it's that time. It's still time to go register to vote. So please do what you must, do what you can, exercise your right to vote. We'll be right back with more of Another Look.